to our next Challenger Connection. I'm Commander Jennifer, and again today I have special guest Sydney, and Commander Melissa gave her a new title since she thought she did so well with the last video. She now gave her the title of Junior Commander. So congratulations on your new title, Sydney.
Thanks.
So what are we talking about today?
Planets.
So we're going to talk about planets, and then we're going to be doing a STEM activity today, because we're going to be adding that A in there again. We're going to be doing some art. So when we're talking about the planets, how many planets are there?
8.
8. Now, do you know when I was little, there were actually 9 planets. Do you know why that's different? Pluto! Pluto, yeah. So in my lifetime, they demoted poor little Pluto. Pluto used to be a planet, but since it's so small, they changed its category into a dwarf planet. So right now, in our solar system, we have 8 planets, right? And so there is a little mnemonic thing to help you remember the order they are from the sun. And you've probably heard it before. My very elegant mother just served us nachos, right? And so what you do is you use the first letter of each of those words to help you remember the first letter of the planets in order from the sun. So my would be Mercury, right? It's the closest to the sun. It's also the smallest planet. So those first 4 planets that are the closest to the sun are actually called rocky or terrestrial planets. And so Mercury is the closest to the sun. It's the smallest. It's also the fastest revolving planet, which means it's going around pretty fast. And it's the second hottest planet. I would think because it's the closest to the sun, that would mean it was the hottest planet, but it's not. What's one thing that kind of determines how hot a planet is?
Gases.
The gases that it's made of. So not all planets have the same gases in their atmosphere. And so some of them act a little more like a greenhouse, makes it a little hotter. So Mercury actually is the second hottest because the next planet, some of the gases in its atmosphere make it a little hotter. Which planet's next? So we've got M, my, very, would be V. Venus. So Venus is the second planet from the sun. It's also the brightest and the hottest because we talked about some of those gases. So not only do the gases determine how hot a planet is, but of course how close it is to the sun. The further you get away from the sun, obviously it's going to get a little cooler. And Venus is one of those planets that you can see in our night sky quite a bit because it's fairly close to the Earth. And they call it Earth's twin some because of their size comparison. They're pretty close in size. So we've got Venus. And next, probably yours and my favorite, which is
Earth.
Earth, right? So Earth is next. That my very elegant E would be Earth. And then the next word is Mother. Which planet would that be?
Mars.
Mars. So Mars is the 4th planet from the sun, and it is the only planet as of right now that NASA plans to send actual astronauts to. Did you know that? So in our lifetime, NASA plans to send astronauts to the planet Mars. So obviously we know quite a bit about Mars. We send rovers to Mars a lot. There's orbiters there. We study Mars quite a bit because not only are we wanting to know more about it, but we want to send astronauts to it. So Mars is pretty unique for a couple of big features that it has. One of the things that Mars has is the biggest volcano that has been discovered in our entire solar system. So think about our big, huge mountains and volcanoes, right? This particular volcano on Mars is much, much bigger than ours. It's called Olympus Mons. From the base to its peak is approximately 13 miles. If you were to take Olympus Mons and place it on our Earth, it could take up just about the entire state of Arizona. It's huge. Now there's also some other pretty big volcanoes on Mars, none of them are active that we know of, so that's a good thing. So that's something to think about when you're sending astronauts there. You don't want to send an astronaut to an area with an active volcano. The other thing that Mars has is the biggest canyon. What's our big canyon here in the United States?
The Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon, right? I've never been there. Have you been there? So the Grand Canyon, to us, is huge. We've seen pictures of it. It just looks really big. This canyon on Mars would make it look like a crack in the ground. Valle Marineris is huge. If you were to place it on the United States, it would span our United States from coast to coast, all the way across. That's another thing you have to think about. You don't want to send any astronauts down into the bottom of that canyon, right? So pretty cool things. And they think possibly millions or billions of years ago that Mars was very similar to the Earth. Right now, not so much. Do you think we could live on Mars?
No.
No. Its atmosphere is made of 95% carbon dioxide. Obviously, we're not going to be able to breathe that in. And there's no liquid water yet. They've been searching. They found some frozen water around the poles, along with frozen CO2, which we know is dry ice. So Mars, very interesting planet. You can see it in our night sky quite a bit too. So after we get through those 4 rocky planets, now we started to get into the 4 gas giants. They're huge, much bigger than any of these 4 inner planets. And our next, or our 5th planet, is actually the biggest planet in the solar system, which is
Jupiter.
Jupiter. It's huge. It's much, much bigger than our Earth. It's the largest planet in the solar system, and it also has a lot of moons around it. So some planets have no moons, some have a few, some have a bunch. So Jupiter has about 79 known moons, and it's the fastest spinning planet in our solar system. And one unique thing about Jupiter, when you look at pictures of it, there's that dark red spot. Do you know what it is? It's actually a storm that's been going on for thousands of years on Jupiter. So that dark red spot is a storm. Now we're to our 6th planet, which is really pretty. It's pretty unique because it has all of those rings around it. So we're to the S. So we got my very elegant mother, just was Jupiter, served as S, which is
Saturn.
Saturn. It's known for its rings. It's also a huge planet. It's the 6th one from the sun. And we've talked a lot about density in these videos. Saturn, they think, is one of the least dense planets. They think if you had a body of water big enough to put Saturn in, which obviously that would be a huge body of water, they think it would float. They're thinking Saturn's density would be less than the density of water, which is 1. So it's very light as far as its density goes. And it has all those pretty rings around it too. And it has about 62 moons. Lots and lots of moons around Saturn. So we've got our S. Now we're to our U.
Uranus.
Uranus. That is our next planet. It's the 7th. And it's the coldest planet in our solar system. So it's not the last planet out there, but it is the coldest one, and probably most of that has to do with its gases, right? So our gases. And it is kind of unique because as it is spinning, it spins on its side. So instead of spinning this way, it's kind of spinning on its side. It's got a lot of moons too, about 27. And then our 8th, final. So we had U for us. My very elegant mother just served us nachos. Neptune. So Neptune is our 8th planet. And it's the smallest of those 4 gas giants. It's the smallest of the 4. And it has very, very strong winds on it. And it has about 13 moons. And then we have, out a little further, our little dwarf planet, which is Pluto, which we at the Challenger Center, we just love Pluto. We wish they'd make it a planet again. Who knows? Someday they might. But we've got Pluto. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that A back in STEAM, in STEM. And we're going to make some planet sun catchers. So basically we're putting something that you could put in your window, on your door and look really pretty. So the things that you're going to need for this activity, you're going to need some coffee filters. So I've got one that's here already spread out, but you need some coffee filters. You're going to need some markers. So we've got plenty of those. And you're going to need a spray bottle with water, just some water in it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a planet first. So Sydney, which planet did you say you're going to do?
Neptune.
She's going to do Neptune. So she's going to look at some pictures of Neptune. It's probably the best thing to do to get some ideas of what color Neptune even is, what some of the different features might be on it. And what she's going to do is she's going to pick out some colors here. And she is going to take her coffee filter, which we've cut this one down a little bit because Neptune is still pretty big. It's bigger than the Earth, but it's not quite as big as Jupiter, which is what I would use a whole coffee filter for probably. And so she's just going to color this. All right, so she's going to pick out some colors that she wants. Now, the cool thing about doing this project, you do not have to be neat. You don't have to try to make straight lines. You don't have to try to fill it all in. And matter of fact, you probably want to leave some spots white on this for this activity. So what you'll do is you'll just color however you want to try to see if you think you're going to get some of the colors with Neptune.
So what we're doing in this activity is something called diffusion. When you do diffusion, that means molecules are moving from an area of high concentration to areas of low concentration. So basically, they're going from being close together to spreading themselves out. So what Sydney has here is a glass of water, and she is going to add some food coloring, 1 drop of food coloring to the water. So at first, it's highly concentrated. It's all together. And you can see it's starting to diffuse or spread apart. So it's moving with the water and spreading apart and going to other areas of lower concentration. So when we do our coffee filter in just a second, we're going to have it already colored. So we're not adding color to water. We're kind of doing the reverse. We're going to be coloring the coffee filter. And then when we add the water to the color, our marker, it's going to spread out or diffuse just like this. And that means some of it might actually run together or bleed together or spread together. So here Sydney is coloring her coffee filter. Remember, she's doing the planet Neptune. So she looked up a picture, saw some colors she thought might go with that. And notice she's not being super neat. She's not making sure she's coloring it all in because you want some areas of white in there because we want some of those colors to diffuse and spread out and go to other places.
All right. So now she's ready to do our diffusion. So we talked about diffusion just a minute ago. So diffusion is when you're taking those basically the colors that you have on here, and you're adding some liquid to them, and they're going to go from kind of spread out. Now you don't want to completely saturate this. Now you want to get it all wet, but you don't have to get it dripping wet. So she's going to spray it. And watch what happens as she sprays it. What are those colors starting to do? What do you notice, Sydney?
Spreading.
They're spreading out, right? They're starting to kind of, we call it bleeding sometimes, onto the other colors. So you'll notice that some of them are going to kind of mix together probably and make some new colors. And what we have underneath hers, we just put some wax paper, some parchment paper. That way, if you put paper towel or something underneath it when you're spraying it and getting it wet, more than likely some of that color will leak onto your paper towel. So we just use some parchment paper underneath ours. So you'll notice the longer you let it sit, some of those colors are starting to spread apart. And you don't want to mess with it. After you've got it all wet, you want to let it completely dry. So that's what she's going to do. So we've got some other ones over here. Sydney, can you grab those that we've got? So here are some that we have done already. So this big one right there is Jupiter. So you see its big red spot there. What do you think the one in the middle is?
Earth.
Earth. And then we have
Saturn.
Saturn. We've got some rings right there. All right, so once your planets have dried, these are dry. Sydney's obviously is not dry yet. One thing you can do if you wanted to kind of preserve them, keep them from tearing, up. You could put some clear contact paper over them, some clear packing tape or something like that. And then all you do is you put them up in your window or on your door, and the sunlight will kind of go through it, make it look really nice, really pretty. So there's your activity today. Do some color diffusion. Make some Suncatcher planets. So that is our activity for you to do today. So thank you for watching. We hope to see some of your planets in our comments. I'm Commander Jennifer.
And I'm Sydney.
Over and out.